Yo, we back. Goku Marvel episode 4, The Woman in Red. In this episode, Goku will meet Elektra. So let's get into it. Goku's boots crunched against the grimy pavement of Marjapor's low town, his lined cloak flapping behind him as he scanned the crowded streets. The air stank of sweat, oil, and something metallic. Gunpowder, maybe. Not exactly the warrior's paradise he'd hoped for. He tapped a burly man on the shoulder. Hey, where are all the strong fighters around here? The man barely glanced at him before shoving past with a grunt. Undeterred, Goku simply jogged to a pair of mercenaries that were leaning against a wall by a flickering neon sign. Hey, you guys know any good places to spar? Somewhere with real challengers? One of them sneered, flicking a cigarette butt at his feet. Piss off, kid. Goku frowned again. Goku's frown deepened. Craven had warned him. Cities were full of people that had given up on hunts and challenges. But this was ridiculous. He tried a few more times, a street vendor, a woman in a trench coat, even a scarred-up bouncer outside of a club, but no one gave him a straight answer, just dismissive scowls or mocking laughter. His tail began to twitch in irritation. Maybe this place was just a bust. Goku's senses then tingled. Someone was clearly following him. He didn't turn around, didn't react. Instead, he let his instincts guide him. The footsteps were light, deliberate. Whoever it was, they were pretty good. A smirk tugged at his lips. Finally, something interesting. Pretending to be oblivious, he wandered into a dark alley. The neon glow from the main street barely reaching the narrow passage. The air was thick with the scent of rust and damp concrete. Behind him, the footsteps then paused. Goku stretched lazily, rolling his shoulders. You gonna keep hiding, or are we gonna fight? There was no answer. Then Goku said, fine, I'll beat them at their own game. I'll set them up. In one fluid motion, Goku kicked off the alley wall, rebounding to the opposite side. Then he launched himself even more upward, his fingers finding purchase on a rusted fire escape. He flipped onto the rooftop, silent as a shadow. Below his stalker, a figure in a red hoodie stepped into the alley, scanning the darkness for him. Goku grinned. Too slow. He dropped like a stone, his foot slamming into the stalker's shoulder with enough force to crack the pavement. The figure crumpled without a sound, collapsing face first into the grime. Goku landed lightly beside him, tilting his head. You know, I thought you'd be tougher. He crouched, flipping the unconscious body over, and then he froze. Before he could process what he was seeing, 3 more figures in red dropped from the rooftops, landing in perfect unison. Their faces were masked, their movements eerily synchronized. Goku's tail flicked in excitement. Oh, now we're talking. The first assassin lunged, a wakizashi flashing in the dim light. Goku sidestepped him, catching the blade between his palms before twisting. Snap! The sword broke like dry wood. The assassin barely had time to register the loss before Goku elbow cracked into his temple, sending him crashing into a dumpster. The second and third attacked simultaneously, one high and one low. Goku ducked under a sweeping kick, countering with a palm strike to the ribs that sent the second assassin skidding across the pavement. The third aimed a pressure point strike towards his neck, but Goku caught the wrist, flipped the attacker over his shoulder, and drove a knee right into his gut while his back met the concrete. Thud. The last assassin hit the ground wheezing. Goku dusted himself off, slightly disappointed. You guys aren't bad, but you're no Dora Milaje. The assassins groaned, but none got back up. He scratched his head. Who even are you guys? A voice from the shadows answered. We are the Hand. Goku turned, and his grin returned. Now, things were getting interesting. The robed figure stepped forward with his crimson hood casting his face in darkness, except for the faint glint that was within his eyes under the streetlights. Unlike the fallen assassins, this one carried himself with an eerie calm. His presence hummed with quiet authority. You seek worthy opponents, his voice smooth, almost amused. Then you waste your time in these streets. Goku's tails twitched at that remark. His instincts were sharp. This guy seemed to be a little different. Stronger, maybe. But there was something off about him. A scent like old parchment or something metallic like dry blood. Who are you supposed to be? Goku crossed his arms, still grinning but wary. A guide, the man said, turning slightly. The Hand has no quarrels with you. Yet. But if it is a battle you crave, There are greater challenges beyond this city. Craven had taught him better than to blindly trust strangers, especially ones who sent assassins after him first. But still, if there was even a chance of a real fight... All right, Goku said, shrugging. Lead the way. The hooded man gave a slow nod before turning, his robes whispering against the pavement. Goku followed, keeping just enough distance to react if this turned out to be some type of trap. Worst case, I beat up more of these guys. Best case, I finally get a real challenge. Either way, he wasn't leaving Marjapur aboard. He had made up his mind. The underground lair stretched far beyond what Goku had expected, a cavernous hall lit by flickering torches, their orange glow casting long shadows across the stone walls. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, incense, and something metallic, which was probably old blood, maybe. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform where a lone figure addressed an army of red-clad warriors. The ninjas knelt in perfect unison, their masked faces turned upward in reverence. In somewhat reverence. Goku pushed through the crowd, his tail twitching with curiosity. The speaker's voice was cold, commanding, each word dripping with conviction. You will die. The declaration hung in the air, heavy and absolute, but not as weaklings, not as forgotten shadows. The figure stepped forward, their crimson robes shifting like liquid in the torchlight. Their face was hidden beneath a hood, but their presence was undeniable, a pressure that made even Goku's instincts prickle. The hand does not fear death. The hand embraces it. For when you fall, you will rise again, stronger, purified, and eternal. The ninja murmured in unison, their voices a whispered chant. Goku frowned at this. This person was talking about dying like it was some type of reward. Craven had taught him that death was just a part of life, something to expect, not reverence. Finally, the figure turned, sensing an outsider among his followers. The sea of red-clad warriors parted as Goku stepped forward, meeting the speaker's unseen gaze. The hooded figure tilted their head slightly, then reached up and pulled back the crimson fabric, revealing a young woman with dark, piercing eyes and a red bandana tied across her forehead. Her lips curled into a smirk as she took in Goku's wild appearance, the lion cloak, the tail behind him, the unshakable confidence in his stance. You are not one of us, she observed, her voice smooth but edged with danger. Goku grinned. Nope. But I heard there might be some strong fighters down here. The woman's smirk deepened. And what makes you think you're worthy to stand amongst them? Goku shrugged. I already beat up a few of you guys already. They weren't bad, but they weren't great either. A ripple of tension passed through the hand warriors, but the woman raised a hand, silencing them before they could even react. You have spirit, she mused, but spirit alone doesn't impress the hand. Who are you? Goku hesitated. Craven had never given him a real name for a reason. He mostly just called him Boy or Dimitri when he was feeling sentimental. He'd always figured he'd earn his own name when he was strong enough to deserve one. I don't really have a name yet, he admitted. My father told me to make a name for myself, but for now, he smirked, you can call me Dmitry Kravanov. The woman arched an eyebrow. Kravanov? Yeah, after my old man. She studied him for a long moment before nodding. Elektra, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Elektra, Goku said, cracking his knuckles. So you the boss around here. Elektra's eyes gleamed. I am in this branch, the chosen of the hand. And if you seek a challenge, Kravanov, you found one. Goku's grin widened. Perfect. Goku's hair stood up eagerly as Elektra's smirk deepened. She rolled her shoulders, stretching her arms with a fluid grace that reminded him of the Dora Milaje, but this one was more sharper, more lethal. You want to fight me? Goku asked, barely containing his excitement. Elektra's fingers brushed the twin sai that was at her hips. Not a fight, a test. Goku tilted his head. Yeah, what's the difference? She didn't answer. Instead, she lunged. Her fist strike was a blur, a feint with her left hand, followed by a lightning-fast slash with her right side. Goku barely twisted away in time, feeling the blade graze his animal skins. His grin widened. Fast. Really fast. He countered with a sweeping kick, but Elektra flipped over it, landing in a crouch before springing forward again. Her strikes came in a rapid succession. Elbow, knee, spinning back fist. Each movement precise, economical. Goku blocked most, but a few slipped through, brushing off against his ribs. Not bad, he admitted. rolling with the punch before retaliating with a certain burst of speed. His fist shot toward her gut, and he said, "Gotcha!" But he met empty air. Elektra had vanished, reappearing behind him in a whisper of fabric, with a sharp pressure at his spine, which turned out to be the tip of her side pressing lightly between his shoulders. "Dead," she murmured. Goku blinked, and then laughed. "Okay, you're really good." Elektra stepped back, twirling her side before sheathing them. "And you're reckless. Strong, but you lack a killer's precision." Goku rubbed his neck. I've had harsher teachers." Elektra studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Stay. Train with the hand. If you survive, you might become something worth killing." Goku's eyes gleamed. Now that was an offer. Deal. Elektra watched as Goku bounded off to inspect the hand's training grounds, his tail flicking with unrestrained curiosity. The warriors around him eyed him warily, some with suspicions, others with begrudging respect. He had taken down several of their own, after all, and yet he carried himself without arrogance, only an eager hunger for the next challenge. Interesting. She had seen many warriors in her time, assassins, mercenaries, so-called heroes. Most were rigid, bound by codes or vengeance or pride. But this boy, he was different. Like her, he had been forged in violence. Like her, he had been trained from childhood to be a weapon. And like her, he seemed to enjoy it. Elektra exhaled, rolling the memory of their brief skirmish over in her mind. His reflexes were somewhat superhuman. His instincts were sharp as a blade, but more than that, his adaptability was quite uncanny. He had adjusted to her speed mid-fight, learning her rhythm in seconds. If she hadn't exploited his momentary overconfidence, the bout might have dragged on much longer. Potential. That was the word that lingered in her thoughts. Raw, untapped potential. She knew what it was like to be young and deadly, even though she wasn't much older than him. The hand had molded her into the black sky, the chosen heir of their ancient order. She had been a prodigy, unstoppable, untouchable, and yet there had always been something missing. A purpose beyond the kill. Goku, for all his wild energy, seemed to lack that same hollowness. He fought not out of duty or bloodlust, but pure exhilaration, as if battle itself was a game to be mastered. Perhaps that's why I spared him. The thought surprised her. The hand did not take in strays, and yet... Elektra's lips curled into a faint smirk as she watched Goku attempt and fail to mimic one of the ninja stealth techniques, only to shrug and try again with shameless enthusiasm. "He reminds me of myself before the hand broke me." She had no intention of letting him stay soft. The hand would either sharpen him or destroy him. But if he survived, he might just become something extraordinary. Goku's training under the hand was nothing like Kraven's brutal survival drills or T'Challa's disciplined combat forms. This was training of precision, code, calculated, and lethal. The hand's assassins moved like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before their victims even realized that they were dead. Goku, used to roaring charges and bone-crushing balls, struggled at first. His instincts screamed to fight, not stalk. Elektra corrected him brutally. "You are not a beast," she hissed, after he botched his third stealth exercise, her blade resting against his throat. "You are a blade, and a blade does not announce itself before it cuts." Goku gritted his teeth, but listened. Slowly, he learned to move without sound, to blend into the shadows, to strike with surgical efficiency. He still preferred open combat, but now he understood the power of patience. Kraven had taught him about stalking prey, but this was more different. This was more efficient, more difficult to do. One of the hand's most valuable skills was the ability to feel malice before it struck. Goku's Saiyan instincts already had made him hyper-aware, but the hand refined it into something even sharper. Blindfolded in a darkened dojo, he faced a circle of assassins. Their movements were silent, their breathing controlled, and at first he was struck from all sides by phantom blows that he never saw coming. But as the weeks passed, he began to sense them. The faint shift in the air, pressure before a strike, the microscopic tension in the killer's muscles, the cold prickle of intent against his skin, and by the end of the second month, he could dodge without seeing. The hand had enemies who wielded mental powers, telepaths, illusionists, sorcerers, and Goku's mind was a fortress of instinct that was untrained. Elektra introduced him to meditation techniques, forcing him to lock away his thoughts behind mental barriers. At first, it was agony. His mind was too restless, way too chaotic. But with relentless drills and more than a few psychic shocks from the hands of mystics, he learned to fortify his mind. A warrior whose thoughts can be stolen is already predictable, and soon after dead, Elektra warned him. Goku had always favored raw strength, spears, clubs, and his own fists. The hand, however, demanded finesse. Elektra's signature weapons were sais. She taught him to use them not just for stabbing, but for disarming, trapping, and pressure point strikes. He learned to flip them effortlessly, catching them mid-spin like an extension of his hands. She also taught him how to use swords like katanas. The blade was an art form, precision cuts, defensive parries, the lethal taijutsu draw. Goku's natural speed made him terrifyingly quick with it, though his wild swing still earned him smacks from his training masters. By the end of his training, Goku was no longer just a savage brawler or a disciplined warrior. He was now a disciplined brawler assassin. He could fight like a demon in open combat, but now he could also move like a phantom in the dark. He could sense enemies before they struck, shield his mind from intrusion, and wield weapons with deadly grace. Even more so than his former weapons training. With more, Elektra watched him from the shadows with her arms crossed. Good, she thought. Now the real test begins, because the hand did not train warriors for sport. They trained them for assignments. Goku quickly learned that the hand was not a single unified force. It was a web of factions, each with its own agenda, leaders, and methods. Elektra's faction was known as the Crimson Lotus, which was one of the most feared. Unlike the more traditionalist sects, they blindly followed the ancient doctrines of resurrection and demonic pacts. The Crimson Lotus valued skill above dogma. They were assassins, yes, but they were also warriors who embraced the art of combat rather than just mindless slaughter. At this point in time, Goku met somebody named Yuki, the Silent Blade, a master of poisons and pressure point assassination. Yuki was one of Elektra's most trusted lieutenants. She rarely spoke, but when she did, even the most hardened-hand assassins listened. Goku found her fascinating. Her movements were so precise, so controlled that she could drop a man with a single touch. She taught him how to exploit nerve clusters, how to use minimal force for maximum damage. Strength was useless if you do not know where to apply it. She once told him, demonstrating a finger strike that left his arm numb for about an hour. Then there was Sabretooth, a hulking wild-card mercenary who occasionally worked with the hand, when the pay was good. Unlike the disciplined assassin, Sabretooth fought like an animal, all claws and teeth and very brutal. Unrestrained savagery. Goku liked him immediately. Kids got spirit, Sabretooth had growled over their first spar, wiping blood from his split lip. Might even last more than 5 minutes against me someday. Their fights were always messy, always violent, and always ended with both of them grinning like madmen. Not everyone in the hand welcomed Goku, though. The Black Serpent faction, led by the fanatical Master Izo, saw him as an outsider, of reckless upstart who didn't respect their ancient traditions. They believed in resurrection through the beast's power, while Elektra's faction saw such rituals as a crutch for the weak. So there was some infighting. Then there was the Shadow Web, a faction of spies and infiltrators who viewed Goku as too loud, too unpredictable. They preferred sabotage over direct confrontation, and Goku's tendency to smash through problems rather than sneak around them irritated them to no end. Right? And for those of you that know this Marvel continuity, of course I'm changing things. This is just going to be my universe's version, obviously. So let's get into it. The hand does not forgive betrayal, Elektra reminded him one night after a failed assassination attempt that was on their lives, likely orchestrated by a rival faction. You are mine. That makes you a target. Goku just grinned, gripping his power pole. Good. Let him come for us. He wasn't just training with the hand anymore. He was all in the mix. Elektra had seen many fighters in her time, super soldiers, mutants, mystical warriors, but Goku seemed to be something else entirely. It wasn't just his strength or speed that stood out. It was his insane durability. She had she had begun to watch bullets ricochet off his skin like pebbles. She'd seen certain blades snap against his ribs as if they struck vibranium. Once during a mission in Marjapur, a collapsing steel beam had crashed onto him, only for him to shrug it off moments later, grinning like it was nothing. You should be dead, she had said flatly after that incident. Yeah, I've had worse, he'd replied, cracking his neck. At first she assumed he was a mutant, some type of rare beast with unbreakable bones or regenerative healing or something. But the more she trained him, the more she realized his resilience seemed to be adaptive. The harder he was hit, the stronger he got later on. The more he fought, the stronger he became. She tested it once, slicing his arm with a poisoned blade, and it took a while to heal. And then she cut him again with the same poison, and it had almost no effect, as if his cells had gotten stronger against that particular poison. That's not normal, she muttered. Says who? He shot back, flexing his unbothered scratch on his limb. Elektra had encountered mutants before. Some could heal, some were tough, but none of them got stronger after every tough fight, like Goku did. His body wasn't just durable, it was improving. It made her wonder. But for now, she kept her suspicion to herself. The hand had enough secrets, but she did watch him closer now, studying his limits, because if he ever turned against her, she would need to know what his weakness was. Over the 2 years Goku spent with the hand, he and Elektra developed a unique dynamic, one that earned them their respective titles among the assassins. Unlike the other assassins, Goku had no interest in killing weak or defenseless targets. He saw no honor in it, no challenge. Craven had taught him that a true hunter respected worthy prey. T'Challa had refined that philosophy into something more disciplined. So when missions called for bloodshed, Goku took a different approach. He played defense for his unit. If Elektra needed to eliminate a target, Goku would clear the path, smashing through bodyguards, intercepting enemy reinforcements, and taking bullets that were meant for her. He didn't kill unless absolutely necessary, preferring to knock opponents unconscious or disable them with precise strikes. The Hand's elders scoffed at his reluctance, but Elektra allowed it, partly because his strength was undeniable and partly because she found his stubbornness amusing. "You're wasting time," she once remarked, as he disarmed a squad of mutant mercenaries with a flurry of non-lethal blows. "Nah," Goku grinned, tossing the last guard over his shoulder. "I'm simply saving them for later. I know that they can get stronger." Elektra rolled her eyes, but she didn't argue. His methods were unorthodox, but his loyalty was absolute. When rival factions within the Hand tried to ambush Elektra, Goku was the immovable wall between her and her enemies. When a rival warlord sent an army of cybernetically enhanced assassins after them, Goku tore through them like a hurricane, leaving a trail of groaning bodies in his wakes. The assassins began calling him the body of the Hand, a living shield, an unbreakable force that guarded their faction's most lethal weapons, Elektra herself. While Goku played protector, Elektra was the blade in the dark. Where he refused to kill unless challenged, she had no such reservations. Her strikes were surgical, her kills were flawless, and she moved like a ghost, slipping past the fences Goku shattered, eliminating high-value targets before they even knew death had come for them. The Hand's elders respected her efficiency, unlike Goku. She didn't hesitate, she didn't spare often, and she was the perfect weapon, ruthless, precise, and utterly without remorse. But there was one exception. Whenever they faced a truly strong opponent, someone who could match them in combat, Elektra would let them live, not out of mercy, but because Goku had infected her with his philosophy. A worthy enemy was a rare treasure. "Let them live," he'd say, grinning as he wiped blood from his lip after a brutal fight. "They'll be stronger next time." At first, Elektra scoffed at this, but over time she began to see logic. A warrior who grew stronger was a better challenge, could even be hired, a better kill. So while she remained the hit woman, the Hand's deadliest assassin, she started leaving a few survivors, not out of kindness, but because Goku had rubbed off on her. Their partnership became legendary within the Hand, the body and the blade. the unbreakable shield, and the unstoppable dagger. Elektra was colder, more calculating, but she trusted Goku in a way she trusted none of the others. He, in turn, followed her lead, not out of really obedience, but because he respected her strength. They weren't friends, not exactly, but they were something rarer in the world of assassins. True battle partners, and soon that bond would be tested in due time. Goku's reputation as the body of the hand spread beyond the shadows of the assassin underworld. It reached powerful ears, politicians, warlords, and military officials who sought an unbreakable shield against their enemies. Unlike traditional mercenaries, Goku wasn't motivated by money or ideology. He had his top condition for taking a job: give me strong opponents. And so the world's elite began hiring him, not just for his strength, but because he was predictable in his unpredictability. He would never betray them for a higher bid, because he wasn't really that interested in money. He wouldn't get distracted by politics, because he didn't care about them. He was there to fight and nothing else. He became an indestructible enforcer. Politicians hired him to survive assassination attempts, knowing he could crush the attacker without hesitation. Warlords paid him to lead charges into enemy strongholds where he could plow through defenses like a battering ram that was alive, like a living battering ram. And military black ops recruited him for high-risk extractions where bullets bounced off his skin and entire squads crumbled at his fists. He didn't care who he worked for. Morality was irrelevant. If a client promised him worthy opponents, he was going to take the job. Goku's mission became a personal challenge, a way to seek out the strongest fighters in the world. In Sokovia, he was hired to protect the dictator from rebel forces, only to abandon his post mid-battle when he sensed the superhuman among the enemy ranks. He fought the enhanced soldier to a standstill, grinning as the man's cybernetic arm matched his strength. In Latveria, a rogue scientist unleashed a gamma-powered beast to kill a rival. Goku tanked its rage-fueled strikes before slaying it and putting it out of its misery, disappointed that it wasn't stronger. In Marjapur, a crime lord pitted him against mutant gladiators in underground death matches. Goku dominated, but spared some fighters that impressed him, telling them to get stronger for next time. Elektra mocked him for his softness, but she understood. Goku wasn't a cold-blooded killer like her. He was a warrior that sought a real challenge. A challenge after challenge. His reputation did precede him. Soon his name carried weight in mercenary circles. If you hire Goku, you don't get a bodyguard, you get a force of nature. I guess I'll say if you hire Kravinov, but we know we're talking about Goku here. He won't kill unless he has to, but he will break anyone that stands in his way. If you want him to stay loyal, just point him at the strongest enemy on the battlefield. That was things that were often said about him. Goku didn't care about the politics, he didn't care about the money, he just wanted to fight. And soon the hunt for strength would lead him to something more durable than even he was. Goku could take on entire battalions without breaking a sweat. Bullets, they stung, or some bullets stung, but they didn't penetrate. Grenades, he walked through the explosions and coughed at the smoke. Tanks, he'd flip one once just to see if he could. Most of the time, these jobs were too easy. A warlord would hire him to hold a bridge against an advancing army. Goku would stand there with his arms crossed as bullets pinged off his skin. When the enemy soldiers realized their guns were useless, they'd charge, only for Goku to blur into motion, knocking them out with precise strikes. 10 minutes later, the battlefield would be littered with groaning bodies, and Goku would be yawning. That's it, he'd ask disappointed. No super soldiers, no mutants, not even a guy with a power suit. But occasionally a desperate enemy would pull out experimental weapons, plasma rifles, sonic cannons, even stolen Chitari blaster once. Those at least made him pay attention. He let them hit him once, and he'd feel burns. Then he would grin and close the distance in a flash and disarm them with a flick of his wrist. Now that's more like it, he'd laugh. But those moments were rare. Most of the time it was just waves of faceless soldiers, men that couldn't even scratch him. But he kept taking jobs, because sometimes, hidden among the cannon fodder, there would be one fighter who would stand out. A mercenary with enhanced reflexes, a rogue super soldier, or a mutant who didn't know their own strength. And that single fight was worth 1,000 boring battles. So Goku kept signing up for warlike assignments, not for the money, not for the cause, but for the enemies that could make him bleed. When the hand assigned Goku to protect William Stryker, the boy assassin didn't ask questions. He didn't care who the man was, only that the job promised interesting opposition. Elektra warned that they'll probably send mutants after him because that's his expertise, strapping a vibranium reinforced bracer onto her wrist for the mission that she had going. Or was actually adamantium. Real ones, not just street level trash. Goku's tails twitched in anticipation. He was given an alias. To avoid drawing attention, Stryker's people gave him code name Z. Why Z? Goku had asked, frowning. Because you're the last line of defense, the handler replied. The end of the line for anyone stupid enough to actually come after us. Goku just shrugged. As long as he got to fight, he didn't really care what the hell they called him. On the first day on the job, he got to see some action. Stryker was a cold, calculating man who eyed Goku like some type of specimen rather than a bodyguard. You're the so-called indestructible mercenary. Stryker adjusted his glasses. Prove it. Goku smirked. Shoot me. A nervous soldier obliged, firing a .50 caliber round point blank at his chest from a Desert Eagle. The bullet flattened against his skin and dropped to the floor. Stryker's lips curled into a slow, fascinated smile. Excellent. Within days, the attacks came just as Elektra predicted. Each time, Stryker watched a chilling interest, murmuring into a recorder. Subject Z exhibits power levels beyond baseline mutants, potential for further study. Goku didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and he didn't care. He was just happy to finally have a challenge, but soon he'd realize Stryker wasn't just studying the mutants. He was studying him. One night, he got a call from Elektra, and Elektra's message was brief. Someone dangerous is coming after Stryker, Kravenov. Not just a mutant, a killer mutant. He is also older than he looks, and he's quite unbreakable, much like you. Goku's tails twitched with anticipation. Finally! Then we jump to the mutant in question. Wolverine trekked through the snow as brute as ever, closing in on the bastard that experimented on him all those years ago during the Weapon X program. And today would be the day that he got it back in blood. Alright, so yeah, that's the Goku and Elektra story. Once again, this is a remastered version of a story I told 3 years ago. And on the next episode, Goku's going to trade blows with Weapon X, a.k.a. Wolverine, Mr. Logan. So hopefully you guys like it, man. If you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Till the next one. Gone. Peace.